So this is my JANOME model 7025. I've had this machine for 9 years now. It's still going strong. And I'm just going to quickly go through the parts of the machine. This is the hand wheel, and as you can see, it manually moves the needle up and down. And this little black thing here is the needle clamp screw to change or tighten your needle. These are the different stitches that you can do on the machine, and to choose those you just turn this dial here, which is the pattern selector dial, and as you can see it automatically adjusts the needle position for you. You can also do a one-step buttonhole on this machine, which is really handy, and the machine also sews the button on for you, so you don't have to hand sew it. It also comes with an attachment which will automatically decide the length of your buttonhole depending on the size of your button for you. It's an excellent machine, comes with so many attachments. I haven't used them all myself because I haven't needed to, but it's a brilliant machine. It does so much. This is the stitch length dial, and I usually set mine to 2.5, but it will need adjusting depending on the type of fabric that you're using, and the rectangle is for the buttonhole. The SS is for sewing stretch fabric, so this is the stretch stitch, and I will give you a quick demonstration of that in a moment. Up the top here we have the stitch width dial, and we turn this to set the desired stitch width. The higher the number, the wider the stitch. I usually have mine set to about 4, and as you can see it also adjusts the position of the needle. This is the needle thread tension dial, and I usually set mine to about 3 or 4, but again that depends on the type of fabric that you're using, so it's always a good idea to test your fabrics once you've set your machine and make adjustments when needed. The machine comes with the needle threader that you can see me playing with here. It's really handy, saves time with threading your needle. And this is where my bobbin sits, but as I said, this is a brief tutorial, so I'm not going to show you how to thread it up unless you want me to show you that in detail, and I will make a separate tutorial for it. So I'm just going to show you how to do a regular straight stitch. So I start by placing my fabric underneath the foot, and using the hand wheel I lower the needle into the fabric. This is done to avoid any damage to the needle, and then I'm just sewing a straight stitch, back tacking at the top to secure my threads, and back tacking again when I've completed my stitch. This will secure my thread and stop them from unravelling. And this is a demonstration of the stretch stitch on stretch fabric. To make the stitch really strong because it's on stretch fabric, the machine goes forward and back, so it goes over the thread twice. And this is what it looks like. As you can see, it's a very strong stitch. I can stretch it without it snapping. If I were to use a regular straight stitch on stretch fabric, as soon as you put your body into the garment, it is going to snap because the thread is not strong enough to support any tension. And here I'm just quickly doing a zigzag stitch just so you can see what that looks like as well. It's very common to use this in place of an overlocker if you don't have one, for stretch fabric and also for decorative top stitching. Is my JANOME overlocker model 9200D, and I've had this again for 9 years, just like my other machine. It's my most used machine, so I do try and take good care of it. It's already threaded, which I'm not going to go through again. If you want that in detail, then please let me know. And I've put 4 different colour threads in the machine, so you can see the different threads once I've done a little sample for you. And it's recommended to use polyester thread, which is the largest spool that you can see here, as it's much stronger than cotton polyester mix, and it will avoid your threads snapping while you're serging. This is the looper cover, and inside here is a diagram showing you how to thread the upper and lower looper, which are basically your 3rd and 4th thread. And on the left hand side you will see knobs which control the knife and also the cutting width adjustment. Here we have the bottom dial, which is the differential feed dial, and the top dial is the stitch length dial. I usually have mine set in the middle, about 1.5 for the bottom one and at 3 for the top for regular overlocking, but I will adjust those if I'm gathering or if I'm doing another type of stitch. These are my thread tension dials, and I always have them set to 3 if I'm just regular overlocking and depending on the weight of my stretch fabric, but again I will adjust those depending on the stitch that I'm doing. Here I'm just placing my fabric underneath the presser foot and I'm just sewing the raw edge. When I finish stitching, I will continue to run the machine slowly to produce a thread chain for about 10 to 12 centimeters, and then use the knife to cut that off. You can also use this machine for 3 thread overlocking for woven fabrics by removing needle 1. You can also wide overlock by removing needle 2. Here is what it looks like when it's finished. The black and yellow thread are needle 1 and 2. The red thread is needle 3, which is the upper looper. And on the reverse, the green colour is the lower looper, thread 4. To gather the fabric, you're going to need to set your stitch length dial to the highest, which is number 4. You want this to be loose, and your differential feed dial to number 1, which is tight, and also your needle threads 1 and 2 to at least 8 or 9 so that they're nice and tight. This will gather your fabric as you sew. Be sure to allow your machine to do the work. Do not pull your fabric or try to gather it up yourself. The machine will do it all for you. And here you can see it's nice and gathered nice and tightly. This is just another feature of the machine. You can also do picot edging, narrow hemming, pin tucking and rolled hems on this machine. As I said, if you do want to see that, please let me know. And finally, we have my cover stitch machine, which is the JANOME 1000 CPX, and I've had this for about 3 years now. As with the other machines, on the right hand side we have at the bottom the differential feed dial, right above that is the stitch length dial, and on the top is the hand wheel, which will raise and lower the needle. This little guide here is really handy as it shows me what stitch tension I should be using depending on how many needles I'm using, the garment that I'm making, and the desired width of my lower looper stitch. And I use 2 needles most of the time when I'm just hemming, so I will set my first and second needle to 4 and my lower looper to 3. This is my looper cover, and inside you will find a diagram with instructions on how to thread the looper. The machine takes a maximum of 3 needles for your top stitching or hemming, and you can also buy separate attachments for binding, which I have bought 1 of them. I will show you that in another tutorial if you request it. Here I'm just giving a quick demonstration of how I would sew a hem. So I folded the fabric over and I'm just going to top stitch that. You have to sew blind because you can't see the reverse obviously, so you really do have to be accurate when sewing. Luckily this was see-through so I could see what I was doing, but you really want to be careful and make sure that you're catching the fabric on the reverse. And once I finish sewing, I'll lift my needles to the highest point and pull my fabric to the back and just cut the thread off. But with this machine, you need to secure the threads by separating the top and bottom threads and tying knots, otherwise it will all unravel. This is what it looks like when it's finished. It's exactly the same as you would find on the hem or the sleeves of your t-shirt or a vest top, and it gives such a professional finish. I do love it. So this machine is used for hemming, adding tapes or elastic, for decorative top stitching, and if you buy separate attachments, you can add stretch binding.